Hey guys, today I upgraded the J10 gearbox and I came across a couple of issues that I thought I may as well share. The first one was getting the motor height correct, I guess, because there's no adjustment. So I thought, oh well, I'll just put it in and see how it goes. So this is the original motor, and this is the upgraded one. What I did, because there's nowhere, it makes it really hard to see where your bevel and pinion gear, how they line up and all that sort of thing, because it's all one piece, and when that's in there you can't mount the motor onto here to see how anything lines up, because it's done through all here. So I thought, well, I'll just give it a go, see if I arse it. I checked the motors, make sure they're identical. That's not the height there, that's been taken off, and the reason I had to take that off the original one was to get this spacer. This is the spacer here that comes with the upgraded motor, but I'll show you why I swapped them over. But anyway, I made sure that the motors were identical in height and where the pinion gear was sitting. I thought I'll just give it a go. So I put it, when you put this in, this is the upgraded spacer here. When it goes into that hole down there in the middle, it's got stacks of play in it. It wobbles all around. See if I can show you. It's sort of, you can see it. It wobbles front to back and side to side. So what I did is this is the spacer that was on this one. I took that off this one, put it onto this one, because it's got a bigger diameter here to fill that hole up into here. And once that's in there, it doesn't move. There's no play. You can't wobble it side to side or front to back. Right, so that's the first thing. The next thing was, it was just going to be all guesswork, I guess. This is the upgraded metal SHS 18:1, and this is the original nylon gear. And I just eye them. They're pretty much, the same looking heights, so forth. The shafts are a little bit longer on this one. Anyway, long story short, like, you got to pull it, take it, put it together, take it apart, put it together so many times, just to check. So this was the first one I checked in the gearbox, the most important one, because I wasn't going to do anything else until these two were lined up perfectly. And I just did educated sort of guesses, and what ended up working in the first time and perfectly was on the left hand side of the gearbox. This is with all the gears actually. There's very little shimming, like a minimum shim on the bevel gear on this side down here. And with the spur gear there was nothing. And with the sector gear there was just a minimum spacing as well, minimum shim. Then on this side, the spur gear only needed pretty minimum 2 by memory, but the bevel and the sector needed stacks of shims. So I kept everything low and flat, and that seemed to work really well. So I put the spur gear in, did up some of these, put it into here, whacked the motor up, and there's only one height it can go, so it went in, screwed the bottom on, and tested that, and it worked perfectly. There was no squelching, no squealing, no grinding, and whenever you let go of the trigger, it kept going, so it was free running. So I don't know if I just lucked it or if you just, I don't know, but it worked, so I'm pretty happy with that. So then I put the rest together, put all the gears back on, and put this all together and shot it. And what happened was the piston got jammed right up the back here, and it wouldn't go any further. And I had a feeling I knew what it was going to be, so I pulled it back down, and I had to short stroke the sector gear. I had to take the last tooth off the sector gear because when that was fully back, I'm dropping everything here. The tooth, there was a tooth still caught here, the last tooth from the sector gear, so it just didn't have enough room to go back. So I'd take the last tooth off the sector gear, and it cleared it, and then it worked. So put it back together again, and then pull the trigger, and the piston came right back, and well, actually it didn't go all the way back, it stopped about here. It was jammed in there, and I knew it wasn't a sector gear problem, so it had me buggered. And I'm thinking, and I took the spring retainer out in the spring, and the piston was still there and I couldn't move it. So I thought, well, I don't know, maybe the piston's too big and it's jamming in there. So I pulled it apart again, and I had a look at the original piston and measured these ones and so forth, and they're all, the diameters are spot on, there's nothing wrong with them. And then just by chance, I laid a piston in the track, and it wouldn't really slide, it was sort of gripping. And what apparently I found out what happened is the rails in here, the guide rails that these slots slide on, are quite large compared to a lot of pistons. So what was happening is the gap in here was too small to fit the slots here, and it wasn't sliding properly, and when it got back up here it'd just jam. Okay, so I got all my pistons out. I had a new one to use and all that sort of thing, and the only ones that wanted to fit was this one, and the one that's in there. And so what it is, the size here, that's what's going on. That's a 2.33, say. Like this one here, it's a 2.2, and that 0.1 makes a huge difference to this fitting on the gearbox slide ball. This one's perfect, this offset one, 2.39, it goes really nicely, and the one that I've got in there is it fits perfectly as well. So that was that issue. Took a while to work that out. I had no idea that was going to be a problem, that sort of thing. Then when you upgrade the spring sizes, start to put some nice heavy springs in, like with a lot of gearboxes, the spring retainer was moving a lot, and you can easily get spring jam. Okay, so if you're going to use heavy springs, that can happen a lot. It'll kink down as the spring comes back. So I looked at this, and it's got the thread in the back of it. I've got a little bolt to screw into here. Okay, got the right one. That's perfect size. When it's sitting straight, that sits perfectly. It doesn't matter what spring you use, it'll stay there. But I had to, so once that's in, it has to go through here. Okay, so hang on a second, I'll just try and sort of show you. Okay, this works perfectly. So I'll show you this. This is where you got to drill your hole. Now you got to be really careful because there's not much meat left once you drill that hole. Just try to show you there. Okay, that lines up perfectly center when the gearbox is in the lower half of the receiver. That goes perfectly onto there. Okay, so that's exactly where you want your hole. If you're going to do it, start off with a very small drill and build your sizes up till you get to this size here. Okay, this is the exact length that you need, which is let me see, can you see that there? Sorry. So from tip to the bottom of the head, let's just say 18.9. Okay. I don't know what size the thread is and so forth, and what type. You can work that out, but that's the length that you need, no longer, and that's exactly where you want your hole to have it straight. All right. Okay, so yeah, I was running this with a Well M4 spring, and it was doing something like 260, like with 11 volt or something like that. And this spring here is the one that you get with a Singularity gearbox. That's what that spring's from, and it measures 12 on the low Guido spring scale, and this is doing a perfect 290 FPS, and that's an average on full auto. It's actually a very nice gearbox. I really like these. They're strong, they're really well made. I can't see it breaking at any part of it. That screw there is one that I've had to make up and put in. It was one of these types, but what I found with this gearbox is back the first time I pulled it apart, one of these that was in there just kept spinning around and it wouldn't tighten. So that screw that was there is up here because that's what happened to this one. It was just spinning around and wouldn't tighten, and this one here is starting to do it. Okay, so that is a problem, one problem with the gearbox, so be careful with your screws. It's not because I over tighten them, because I don't do that. I've learnt that problem a long time ago, but I don't know, it's just where the type of plastic it is or whatever. But I really like the gearbox, and alright, I think that's about it. So yeah, there's just those couple of things. You know, it's hard to get that motor height. I think I just asked that. And with the piston, okay, with that gap, just be mindful of that. All right, so I think that's about it. Okay, so thanks for watching, guys. Till next time, remember,
Charlie, don't serve!